Hi, I'm Tiffany. Welcome to Towering TBR. If you're new, I'm chronically ill and disabled, and I read a wide variety of books. This is actually a great video of mine to start with, so that you can see if any of your bookish tastes overlap with my bookish taste. I'm going to check in with my goals, and then I'm going to answer the questions for the mid-year book Freakout tag. So, I will link my goals video if you'd like to watch it. My first goal was to reread, and I am so glad I made this a goal. I forget how much joy I get with rereading. I have reread 8 books thus far, and my goal is 12. However, I plan to reread the Amari series, books 1 and 2, in anticipation for the 3rd one, as well as reread the 4 Bobaverse books for the 5th book to come out. So I'm feeling very great about this goal. I definitely think I will smash it. My second goal was to read an intimidating classic, and I picked Moby Dick. I picked up Moby Dick in May, and I DNF'd it at 111 pages. The writing was just not for me, and that's fine. I consider this goal accomplished. I also had a goal to reread books that were by my favorite authors of 2023. I have 12 in total that I plan to read, and I have accomplished 6 so far. So I'm a tiny bit behind, but I'm still feeling good about the progress I'm making on that. And my last goal was to read books using my TBR game with a bingo board. I have had a ton of fun doing that. I will link July's TBR if you'd like to watch it, or any of the other ones. And I should be finishing this bingo card in the next 2 months. And then I'm going to be introducing a new TBR game. So stay tuned for that. That's very exciting. So all in all, feeling pretty good about my progress for my goals. Let's get into the mid-year book tag Freakout questions. The first question is, what is the best book that you've read so far this year? If you saw my May wrap-up or the single review book that I did, you will know that Disability Intimacy, edited by Alice Wong, is one of my favorite books. This is definitely my favorite nonfiction book I read this year. It is an exquisite collection focused on a variety of different disabilities, a variety of different views of intimacy. It's not just sex, but there's a lot more that goes into it. And I was bowled over by how amazing this collection is. I highly recommend it, and if you'd like to watch the single review that I did of this book, I will link it up above. But I couldn't just leave it at that. I have 2 more that I want to talk about. The first is The 5th Season by N.K. Jemisin. This is a dystopian fantasy about a future world where there are people called Origines, and they basically have magical powers that can help still earthquakes. This is a climate fiction book, and there's just so much in here, and it is amazing, and I'm currently reading the 2nd one. That's how good it is, and definitely recommend as well. The other favorite fiction book that I read is Burnham Wood by Eleanor Catton. I did not know what to expect going into this book. I knew it was a literary fiction focused on an eco group, and yeah, I would say go in not knowing a whole lot, and you're never going to guess where the story will take you. It is mind-blowing and, in my opinion, a pretty good page-turner. All right, let me go to question 2. What is the best sequel you've read so far? I haven't read a ton of sequels. I would say probably Tiamat's Wrath by James S.A. Corey. This is book 8 in the Expanse series. There are 9 books and several short stories and novellas that go in between them. And something really surprising happens in this book. And I read this book much quicker than the others. I just had to find out what was happening. And yes, definitely the best sequel I've read this year. What is a new release that you want to read but haven't gotten to yet? That would be Challenger by Adam Higginbotham. This is a nonfiction book about the Challenger that exploded in, I think, 1986. And my friend Audrey over at Audrey Approved, I'll link her, said that this is her best book she's read so far this year. And so she and I have a lot of overlapping book tastes, and so I'm really, really hyped to get to this one. I've been a little bit in a slump lately, and so I haven't been gravitating towards nonfiction lately, but I can't wait to get to this. The most anticipated release of the second half of the year. This was not even a contest. This is We Are Legion, We Are Bob by Dennis E. Taylor. This is the first book in the series, and there are currently 4 books out. However, in September, we are getting Not Till We Are Lost, which is book 5, and I am ridiculously hyped for it. I'm planning to reread this entire series in preparation for book 5, and this is a very humorous sci-fi adventure and has the same narrator as Project Hail Mary. If you liked his narration, you might like this as well. I'm also ridiculously excited for And So We Roar by Abby Daré. This is I don't know if it's a sequel or if it's a companion to The Girl with the Louding Voice, which was one of my favorites last year. I'm excited to hear more about Aduni and some of the characters we met in book 1. That should be coming out really soon. Biggest disappointment. This was easy. I immediately knew what my biggest disappointment was, and that was Cascade Failure by L.M. Saugus. This was compared to Becky Chambers, who is one of my favorite science fiction authors, and she writes exquisite characters and lovely world building, and that comparison did her dirty. This book was terribly written. The characters weren't at all really likable or fully fleshed out. And yeah, I'll link my review in case you'd like to hear more. But it just had a sequel come out, and I'm not gonna pick it up. It was not good. What is the biggest surprise you've read this year? I have to say that's got to be The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett. It is a fantastical mystery. We have a Sherlock and Watson type duo who are trying to solve a murder, and they also live in this walled city, and they are trying to solve the murder before the Leviathans, which are these sea creatures that live outside the walls. Before the wet season starts, they need to solve the murder because then they'll have to hunker down away from these creatures. I really loved it. The writing was very well done, and I liked the characters and the world building, and it was so great, and I absolutely wasn't expecting it. The next book in the series is coming out in February of next year, and I am really excited to get to it. Favorite new author. So I mentioned I like Robert Jackson Bennett because of The Tainted Cup. I also picked up one of his older books, Foundry Side, and I gave this 4 stars. So he could be technically a new favorite this year because I've read 2 books by him that I love. Also, I read Nana Kwame Adjei-Brenyah for the first time last year, and I read his short story collection this year, and I love his writing. I will pick up whatever else he puts out. Newest fictional crush. I love Amos's character from the Expanse books, and it definitely doesn't hurt that in the TV adaptation, this is the guy that plays Amos, and he's pretty hunky. I might also pick Neve from Her Majesty's Royal Coven. She is just such a cool, badass witch, and yeah, she's really cool. So either one of those characters. Favorite new character. So this might sound a little bit strange, but I really liked Claire, the part-time serial killer from You'd Look Better as a Ghost by Joanna Wallace. Joanna Wallace just has another book come out. It's come out in the UK. I don't know when it's going to come out in the US, but I'm definitely intending to pick it up because I really liked her writing. And yeah, Claire is really snarky and sarcastic and just, dare I even say relatable? I mean, I'm not a serial killer, but I just really loved reading about her. So she's probably one of my new favorite characters. What is a book that made you cry? Okay, so I have 2 answers for this. The first is You Will Be Safe Here by Damien Barr. This is set in 2 timelines. The first is in the early 1900s, and it's a concentration camp in South Africa during the Boers War. I knew nothing about that, and it was horrific and sad. And then in the more modern timeline, we're following a character who goes to the concentration camp, but it has been switched into a conversion wilderness camp to make men out of boys. And yeah, just everything that happens to the characters in this book just it was heartbreaking. It made me cry and was incredibly impactful. A book that made me cry because I was happy was Jamie by L.D. Lipinski. This is a middle grade book about Jamie, a non-binary kid, and they're in their last year of elementary school, and they have to choose between going to a middle school for boys or a middle school for girls. There's nothing, there's no in between. And they feel really neglected, that nobody thought about them. And so they have various struggles, but the reason it made me cry happy tears was because Jamie has an older brother who is incredibly supportive of them. And it made me cry that there are a lot of kids who could use a supportive older brother and don't have one. A book that made you happy, I have two again for this. The first is Best Wishes, Warmest Regards. And this is kind of a coffee table book of behind the scenes during Schitt's Creek. Schitt's Creek is one of my favorite TV shows. I absolutely love it and adore it. And this book just made me so happy. We get all sorts of background information about where Dan and Eugene Levy were taking the characters. We get just different insights from the characters about the actors who played the characters. And it just made me so happy. I just would kick my feet because I'm oh, I didn't know that, and that's so exciting. The other book that I want to talk about that made me happy was Dreadful by Caitlin Rozakis. This is a silly farce with lots of fantasy tropes. We follow this evil dreadlord as he has kind of lost his memories and is trying to piece together what happened and what he wants to do about the situation. And so, some of the time it got a little bit absurd, but it made me happy. It just was funny and silly and just a blast. Most beautiful book you've received or bought this year. I, again, have two. Can't just do one. The first is Some of Us Just Fall by Polly Atkin. This is a chronic illness memoir that focuses on her chronic illness and how it has drastically changed her life. And unfortunately, this does not have an audiobook. I am also chronically ill, and one facet is my migraines, which means I usually need audiobooks as accommodations. This was published in the UK and therefore does not have an audiobook yet in the US. So I'm not sure when I'm going to get to it, but I think it is gorgeous, and I'm very excited to read it. The other book, technically I got this for Christmas, so it wasn't this year, but I'm going to include it anyway because I really like the Penguin cloth-bound editions. This is Jane Eyre, and I'm hoping to read this in the fall. It seems like it might be perfect for that time, and yes, it's just gorgeous. What books do you need to get to by the end of the year? There are so many. Definitely all of the ones I've mentioned that I'm anticipating, but I also very much want to read The Poisonwood Bible by Barbara Kingsolver. I read Demon Copperhead 2 years ago and absolutely loved it, and I've been interested to pick up more of her stuff. I would really like to prioritize The Will of the Many by James Islington. This is the first book in a fantasy series, and there's some sort of school and magic and some sort of revenge plot. So that looks really fascinating. And of course, I would like to get to The Mercy of the Gods, which is the newest book by James S.A. Corey. James S.A. Corey is a pen name for two authors that write together. They did the Expanse series, which I really loved, and so I'm very excited to start a new series by them. And the last question is your favorite video that you've made so far this year. And again, I couldn't just stick with one. I am really proud of the amazing readathon vlogs that I did. Vlogging is very difficult for me because that means I have to have lots of days where I feel ready to speak in front of a camera. And it was definitely a challenge, and I feel like my vlogging is definitely getting better. I will link those if you'd like to check them out. And the other video that I am super proud of is my introduction to Becky Chambers. I have read every single book that Becky Chambers has written, including a short story, and I talk about all of those. And I'm so proud of it. Like, it came together just the way I anticipated. So definitely think if you haven't seen that, definitely check that out. Usually during tags, people tag others, but I feel like I'm a bit late to the game, so I'm not going to tag anybody. But if you have done the mid-year book Freakout tag and you want to link it, I definitely like checking other people's out. If you don't have a channel or you don't want to make this video, but you want to share some of your answers, definitely do that. Let's have a chat in the comments down below. Thank you so much for joining me.